Hey, writers and news daters, I'm so glad to speak with you again. Today we're going to talk about how to know when your manuscript is done. So this is a question that a lot of writers come to me with. They say, how can I know if I'm really finished? When is it time for me to submit? And that's a legitimate question because we work on our manuscripts for a really long time, right? We're looking at them and we're working on them for a long time. So how do we know when they're done? And today I'm going to talk to you about some tips to know when your manuscript is ready to submit. So one of the most important things in knowing whether or not your manuscript is done and ready to be published is whether or not you have a quality product. So many people think that they're done with their manuscript and they're not actually done. It's not finished. It isn't up to industry standards yet. And believe it or not, that's one of the top reasons that manuscripts get rejected, is that the writer, the author in question, didn't spend enough time working on getting that novel, that short story, whatever it is, up to industry standards. For a lot of writers, when they think they're done, their work has really just begun at that point. So when you're submitting, oftentimes people come to me and they say, gosh, there must be a problem with my query letter because I'm not getting a lot of responses. And it may be true, there may be some issues with your query letter, and certainly working on query letters and helping authors to get accepted in the first round is something that I specialize in. So the query letter may be the problem, but in my experience, more often than not, it's the actual manuscript that is the problem. And it's fixable, but that causes a lot of pain for people because agents, they're very busy. They're not going to spend the time to say, hey dude, hey gal, it's your manuscript. Hey dude, hey gal, it's your query letter. They're very busy. They're reading many manuscripts per month. They get even more every month that they're not even looking at. So if you get a response from an agent, you're very lucky. As most of us know, you're not going to get that response. And so it's impossible to know, why was I rejected? What was the reason behind it? Is it my manuscript or is it my query? So for example, Ed had come to me. He had been collecting rejection slips for about a year on his novel. He wrote a fantasy fiction novel and he had submitted it. He'd been collecting these rejection slips for just over a year, actually, when he came to see me. And when he came to see me, he said, I know it's just part of the process that you collect rejection slips. And I said, hold on. I understand why you're saying that, because it can be part of a process, or people believe that it's part of the process. But I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be. This thing where we collect rejection slips for year after year ad nauseum does not have to be part of the process. That's a myth that many writers believe. It's not part of the process. We don't have to experience that terrible feeling of rejection over and over and over again. So once Ed came to me and we had reworked his manuscript, he stopped receiving those rejections, and now he's on his way to publication and representation. So the pain that he was in, that constant rejection over a year, it was well over a year that he collected those rejection slips. We very easily got through that and moved on. How did we do that? Through making sure that the manuscript met the industry standards and the craft standards that agents and publishing houses are looking for. Agents, bottom line, are looking for a manuscript that's well done. That's their first priority. Now these people receive hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of manuscripts every year that aren't up to the standard. You can imagine their frustration in receiving all of these, and that in turn becomes your frustration because frequently agents don't even give a manuscript the time of day. They will skim over the first page. They're not interested. Why? Because they can see right away what it is that they're looking for. They know what their standards are. Do you know what standards they're looking for? Do you know how to find those things and identify those things in your own manuscript? Can you point to the areas where you have definitely met their requirements? If not, then it's highly likely that you're going to continue that same cycle of rejection that Ed ended up in. And maybe you've already experienced some of that, and maybe you even believe the myth that that was part of the process, that it's just the way that it goes. But as I said, I'm here to tell you today that that's not true. There's another way to do it that gives us less rejection. It lessens the rejection and increases our success. Think of it like this. An agent is a bouncer at the club, right? And so the bouncer's job is to determine who gets to come into the club and who doesn't. And in this particular club, the agent club, the dress code is not only complicated, but extremely intricate. And not only is it complicated and extremely intricate, but you don't necessarily know what it is today, right? And it can change over time. So what was in yesterday might be out today. And if you spent any time investigating the literary market, you know that that is true. And you need someone who can give you that inside scoop. So imagine that you're waiting to get into this club and you're in line and you're looking ahead and you're sort of wondering, like, am I going to be one of the ones to get in? What kind of people are they letting in? And you're making decisions about the people in front of you, right? And you notice that people who've got a lot of buttons on their jacket get in, and so you're trying to put more buttons, and then suddenly it's the people with fewer buttons, and so you're taking buttons off, right? And you're struggling, right? There's that frustration of, I don't know what's being accepted. I don't know if I measure up. I'm not really sure what's going on up there. What's happening? And I think that you can relate to that analogy as a writer looking at trying to publish and say, what are the standards? How do I get into this club? How does this work? The agent is the bouncer. And the agent, they know what it is that they're accepting and what they're not accepting. Now imagine this same scenario. You're outside the club, you're waiting to get in, you're not really sure, and suddenly you've got a friend on the inside, right? And this friend is able to phone you and say, look, here's what they're looking for. Take a deep breath. Don't you worry, because they want people with lots of buttons, and the thing right now is red pants and purple shoelaces. And that friend can guide you through what the standards are in not only the things that stay forever, right? You have to be wearing pants, you have to wear a shirt, like, you need to be covered in a decent way, but what the trends are right now, right? Because in the publishing industry, those are two really important things. What are the guidelines that are true, that hold fast, that are going to be true now and probably true forever? And what are the things that they're looking for now? You need the kind of friend on the inside who can tell you those things so that you know if your manuscript is ready to submit, so that you don't have to be that person in line wondering, is my manuscript good enough? What are they looking for right now? Do I even meet the standards that are kind of the forever standards? Am I going to be okay? What's going to happen when I get to the front of the line? Because think about that. When you finally get your turn to get to the front of the line, you spent all of that effort to dress up your manuscript to make it as good as you thought it could be. And then they say, nope, not you. And now you've got to go back. You've wasted all those years making that manuscript. You've wasted all of that time in line. Now you've got to go back and do it over again and get in line all over again and start the whole process over again. I understand why people created and believe the myth that it must take time. But consider the fact that if you're doing it up to standard the right time, the first time, you're increasing your chances of being accepted. So you don't have to wait on that line. And if you're on that line, you don't have to wonder, is my manuscript good enough? No, you know that it's met the standards. It might not be the right manuscript for that agent right now, but it is going to get representation. So you come at it with that kind of confidence because you've got that inside information. I want you to think about what that would be like for you to go from wondering what the heck is going on up at the front of the line to knowing that when you get to the front of that line, the answer is going to be yes. That feels good. To go from uncertainty, to go from a lack of confidence, to go from not knowing what the heck is going on, to saying, wow, I'm in, I got this. This is going to happen for me. So you're over that agony of waiting to see if you're good enough and knowing that in fact your manuscript is, and you're going to get in. So some people think that they can get around this whole problem by self-publishing. And it is true that, I could write something on the back of a receipt in the grocery store line and send it in to any number of publishers and get it published, and it could be a book tomorrow. And that's great if I want to see my name on a book, and it can be very gratifying in some ways. And yet it doesn't guarantee that I've created a quality product. Self-publishing does not guarantee that I've created a quality product. And who cares? Well, here's what's going to happen if you don't create a quality product, and I've seen this happen over and over and over again with authors who come to me who have self-published, and they're frustrated because the only person who's bought their book is their mom and their cousin Betsy, who always wanted to be like them when they grew up, right? So their sales are very low, and it's not working. People aren't buying their book. They're trying to book speaking gigs at the local library, and even the local library won't accept them. They're not having the level of success that they want. Why? Because the book was poorly written, and therefore the recommendations that came in, right? We've all seen those recommendations on Amazon where you can give each book a rating. So the ratings are very low, the response is very low, the sales are very low, and therefore, if you've studied the algorithm of how Amazon works, they're not getting the exposure, no one's seeing their book, and no one's buying their book. Why? Because it wasn't a quality product to begin with. And if you think that that's not true, I think every single one of us can think about a time when we picked up something and you said, seriously, this got published? Seriously, this person thought this was ready? Right? So we've all kind of had that experience around looking at something, and you don't want to be that person, right? If you have written something, it's because you have an important story to tell. You've got something here that needs to come out, that needs to be told, that's important. Your voice is an important part of what's out there. So why would you dress that up, if you'll continue the analogy with me, in an outfit that isn't ready to be seen in the world? That doesn't make sense. So you can self-publish. I absolutely think that self-publishing is the right path for some people in some circumstances. But it doesn't negate the necessity for a quality product if you actually want people to get your message. If you just want to put a book out there and say, hey, my name is on Amazon and I'm that cool, then certainly you can do that. But if you want strangers, people you haven't met, to pick up your book and say, wow, that book made me think. That book changed my life. The way that the main character handled that situation changed the way that I think about the world. If that's the kind of response that you want from the people who pick up your book, then it needs to be well written, because people aren't going to continue to turn the pages if it doesn't keep them interested, if it's not holding their interest, and if it's not appealing to their sense, their innate sense of story. These are important elements to know how to do. And so what I'm saying is that it doesn't matter if you're trying to impress an agent and then a publisher to get traditional publishing to happen for you, or if you decide that self-publishing is right for you. Either way, in either circumstance, if you want to get readers, if you want your message to make a difference in the world, you need a quality product, or you're going to be rejected, either by an agent or a publishing house, or by the readers themselves, who aren't going to appreciate what you've put out into the world after all of that work that you've done. And I get it, right? It's frustrating. And sometimes it can feel like it's this insider's club that you're not a part of. Or it's like trying to join a sorority or a fraternity and not really knowing what are the rules here? How can I even get in to this club right now? I understand that frustration. So if you're tired of that kind of rejection, if you're tired of not knowing what the rules are, if you're tired of not knowing when is my manuscript done, is this up to industry standards, what are the industry standards, what are the trends right now, how are agents in this exact moment in time choosing what manuscripts they're going to represent. If you're tired of feeling that way, then I would love to talk with you about your manuscript and where it is, and how we can get you into the zone of confidence where you know that your manuscript is good enough, where you know that it meets the industry standards, where you know what the trends are saying right now, and where you should get your manuscript to. If you're ready for that, if you're ready to cut the line, to get to the front, to know that it's going to be your turn, let's talk. You can reach me on the link that's in the chat, www.datewiththemuse.com/book-a-call. And that will take you directly into my calendar. You can schedule yourself for a call. We'll get on the phone and we'll talk about where your manuscript is right now and how we can get it into publishable shape and how you can skip all of that time of rejection and move into publication. If you're ready for that, I look forward to hearing from you.